I think at the end, it's about you, what you want to do, how you create value for your team, for your clients, and what that means for your business strategy.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Tobias, very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're the co-founder and partner at Webrepublic, a leading Swiss digital marketing agency. And before we talk about how you actually built and set up the company, we want to go back in time. You did your bachelor's and master's at the University of Zurich and studied communication, history, and also linguistics. And if I'm not mistaken, your master's thesis was called Online Advertising, the Stepchild of Media Agencies. And that was well over 10 years ago. So I'm just curious, what were your hypotheses in your thesis, basically?
Well, I think it's a very interesting question. And I think you're one of the first people to actually also ask me about this this piece of work. As you said, it's now more than a decade old. But I think looking back, it's really an interesting point in time, and also it proved to be some kind of blueprint for us as an agency. And what I tried to do with that is, because digital marketing at that time, so that was like around 2008, 2009, was really something that worked quite well in other countries, but didn't in Switzerland. So budgets were really low. I think we had like less than 1% digital media spend in Switzerland. And my question was, why is this the case? Why is Switzerland so behind other countries? Because like it's a global web and consumers are moving like online all the time, but there seem to have been some like factors in the Swiss market that prohibited this more agile adoption of these new channels. So, and also I worked at like a big advertising agency during that time, and also worked at Google previously. Also worked together with Tom, the founder of the Webrepublic, and I think there was really something in this market to be like uncovered. And yes, that was the case. So I was just looking at the gatekeepers of media investments, which were the big media agencies, and try to understand how are their decisions shaping this market, and what's like working against, and a faster market adoption. So that was basically my question.
Nice. And what were your findings? Like those big gatekeepers, did they just want to save their margins and were afraid of the online business, or why were they acting the way that they did back in the past?
So it's like different factors working together at that time. And one of the factors was, yes, the business model. And that was one of the big factors. So the business model was agencies selling the services based on a percentage of media spend. And that means basically if you're managing like a multi-million TV campaign, that takes some work, but it's really easy to be done with a certain like 3, 4, 5% of that spend for your agency fee. But digital spends were really low. So like a typical campaign during that time would see 10,000 Swiss francs per month, and there was maybe a bigger campaign. So you would rarely see large investments, and then like this model, 4% of media spend doesn't really work with very low media fees. And in that regard, the big network agencies really were not incentivized to like spend too much time on those new channels. So it was really like something they couldn't wrap their head around it. And also then, of course, and this is kind of like one thing leads to the other. If you don't have time because you don't get money to do it, you don't have the resources to actually staff people on those campaigns. And if you don't have people or trained people to actually work on those campaigns, you have poor results. And those poor results then got taken back to the advertisers. And like there was like the proof point, see, it doesn't work, digital doesn't work. But the case was just like that. The business model kind of like didn't work in their favor. And I think that's one of the big things. But also other factors. So like trust, I think there was a lot of a lack of trust in the industry. because you didn't know how it works. There were like no industry events. There was no celebration of what would work. So no benchmarking. I mean, you had this in the traditional marketing and advertising field. So you have like Cannes Lion, HWZ Awards, etc. But you didn't have this in the digital field. Many of these things, of course, have changed over time, and you see these factors really playing out and like shifting the whole market forward. But during that time, it really was like the major factors were like the business model, a lot of people who didn't understand it, so also like a generational topic, and the whole trust issue, because you didn't know what to make of this, and there was no like a sign of trust that would guarantee you that this agency or this channel would actually do.
Got it. And I also wonder, where did your original interest in the online advertising actually come from? Because you were doing your studies, you had a pretty broad field of different studies that you did basically. So I wonder, why did you then decide to actually write your thesis about online advertising specifically?
Well, thanks for the question. Really forces me to reflect on my own life choices. I think when I started out media science at the University of Zurich, I wasn't particularly interested in the advertising field. I think it's something cool. Of course, everybody loves those lectures. But I was really more into this kind of like topic. How does the media shape a society? What's the media's role in society? How do democracies work how do democracies work, and what's the role of the media to have like, well, a society that can make decisions and like organize themselves? It's a very, I think, a question that we can also ask ourselves today with everything happening around social media and of course Trump's legacy that we're now looking at. But that was like the thing that really got me hooked to media science. The other thing was like just the internet. So I was like blogging in the very, very early days. So I had my own blog, I think around 2002. It was way more complicated before Facebook. Always had like my own website. I published music reviews. So I was like a DJ during that time and really like wrote my own were reviews of records that I adored. And yeah, always also tried out like how can I monetize attention on those websites, and kind of like was self-taught in this field. And then I think it was 2007. I just returned from the UK. I just saw this job advertisement at Google Zurich, and I thought that would be really cool. That would be just one thing that would like really suit me well, and it would be really interesting for me. And I was lucky enough to actually really also got that internship, get to know Tom, and then really from there combining this like personal interest and like scientific interest also with actual hands-on business insights. And I think in a way also was really lucky because it was like the time when digital really took off and we found something to really make this work and make an impact.
Right. Yeah. Talking about that fateful summer of 2007, where you got your internship at Google, I think it was as a sales planner. So I just wonder, how was it to work at Google back in these days, in the offices in Zurich? Because that must have been still a very, special and cool feeling, I guess, because Google was back then not as big as it is today here in Zurich.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really cool. And if you just come like from the university life, you get there. I think Google 2007, we were still working in apartments. So it was no big campus as it is today. I think they were just building one of the new campuses, but the actual office was in a apartment building. So we had like different flats converted into offices. But of course it's cool because the internet, and thinking that was like the iPhone was introduced just then. So that was like not something that you would actually also work with. So it was quite niche, but very international. So a lot of really cool teammates, people that are really inspiring. So who got your back if you forgot something, or also you could like provide to them something if they forgot something. It was really very international. And I think I always remember they had this tool where you could just order takeaway food through their own system. And as an intern, that was really cool. Just like order your pizza or Thai food through their own system, and then you get an alert via email, that you can actually pick up the food. And I think everything really also is like the beginning of like cloud computing again. So Gmail was still newish. Most other companies would work with some kind of desktop applications, and this seamless way of doing business, really, like everybody collaborates. You don't have silly folder structures anymore, and that kind of like really felt for me to be at the right time at the right place. And that was really something that I think I didn't find anywhere else.
Yeah. Those little things that make a big difference that you just described, I think that's just fascinating to go a bit back in time. And actually at your internship at Google, that's also where you met your co-founder, Tom Hannon. And he was actually your boss. So how did the idea to start your own company with your boss at Google come up?
That's also a good question, right? I mean, Tom was managing the agency business for Switzerland in his last position at Google, and he saw that there's a lot of potential, so that agencies really don't work to towards the interest of the clients, but actually really navigate their own interests in this space. And my idea was actually to go back to Google, because I did this internship at Google in Tom's team. Always we stayed in contact. Also, Tom really was really helpful and helped me to find new positions during my studies. So that was really cool. And I also got back to the team to inform them about the findings of my master thesis, etc. So we were close in contact. And then I was finishing my studies. And then actually I thought, now I come back, I can go back to Google, to the holy land, the land of my dreams, find the coolest job there and be happy ever after. But things turned out quite different because there was something that you might remember. It's the financial crisis hitting hard in 2009. Google stopped hiring, as many companies did. And also myself and many of my co-students were panicking. Will we ever find a job? So everybody started applying like crazy. I got turned down 3 times for jobs that I'm now super happy that it didn't work out. And actually what happened then, I think I was just returning from one of the exams, exhausted. Tom called and just asked if I would be interested in having a coffee with him. And I said yes, but first I need to go home, take a shower, sleep, and then I'll be back. And well, then we met, and he told me his story about what his plans are. And I first thought, no, I don't want to found a company. I actually want to go back and work at Google. But then on second, I think after sleeping a bit more, I found out, no, this is actually, it's much more interesting. It's much more an opportunity to really make impact. And if you're young, I think I was around 27-ish. Yes, that would be right. It's a good time to do something like that. So, and yes, that was in very humble beginnings. I think really starting to write emails back and forth. What could be the name of this company? What could we do? Starting, Tom has an amazing network of clients and who really also trusted him with his advice. And that's then how we got started. So really, my job was actually doing those campaigns, and Tom was really running around like crazy, and just getting those leads on board. And that was the beginning of the Webrepublic.
So basically a similar setup as in any tech startup. You were the guy building the product or delivering the product, and Tom was the guy selling the product. The perfect combination to get started, basically.
Yes, the classic hunter-harvester setup.
Exactly. And I just wonder, you said going back to Google was appealing. Of course, due to the financial crisis, that was way more tricky or even not possible. But what then gave the impact where you then said, okay, I really take the leap and start my own company? What were the reasons or the thoughts that you had in mind back then that really made you confident to make that jump and start your own company?
I think it had a lot to do with like Tom's personality and also my own interest in like doing my own thing. So I always had like my own student newspaper when I was already in primary school. I set up websites as a student. I always like was kind of entrepreneurial in trying to like do things and kick off things, and that for me really, and still today, I think it's really cool to work in this industry, but also building something that actually works and provides to be useful and provides to be like something that other people value and appreciate. That's really cool, and to see this like flourish and really being part of somebody else's life. I mean, we now have 200 employees at Webrepublic, and this idea really shapes many stories, and is like a big part of other people's life. And I think that's also like one of Tom's big goals and ambitions, that when you look back, maybe in 50 years, that you still think this is one of the craziest rides that we've had. And it was a very, very nice time that we had together at Webrepublic. So it's not just about the money. It's not just about really like doing the things, but really also doing something good with that time and being like a valuable part of the ecosystem we're in.
Right. And that's certainly very motivating. And if you think back then in 2009, you actually founded Webrepublic as a company. What made you two believe that your digital marketing agency would top all the rest, or would be significantly different to what has already been out there in the market?
It's like another good question. I think we just started out. I mean, I knew that. So we had this blueprint. I mean, we had Tom's really in-depth knowledge about the client side and about their desires. And we had my blueprint about what's not working with the other agencies. And from there, I think it just took off. I mean, what we did, and I think that was the cool thing back then, right? Because the budgets were so small, we could do things. We didn't have to check in with management of our clients. So you would just like play around basically with those budgets. You would actually prove that there's value behind those campaigns. And once this machine kicks into gear, once that you generate more revenue, substantially more revenue than the advertiser invests, this attracts more revenue. It just attracts like more attention, bigger budgets, more trust. And I think we really tried hard to not let the clients down. So that's still the goal, really, to like work as if this budget is like our budget, and we take this very personally. I think that approach really was something that was not usual in this industry, that you would really like work hard, that you would like prove that this works. And again, then also that was pretty newish. So there was some companies already doing performance marketing. We were certainly not the first ones. But we were, I think, really trying hard to prove everybody that this was good. And we didn't want to grow. I mean, we didn't want to like become the agency that we're now. Tom actually lost at least 2 bets on the way where we're now, and also has now a tattoo, a really crappy tattoo on his arm, because he once promised that we will never be more than 30 people. So yes, I think we really kind of like adapted while we went along this journey.
Sorry, but I gotta ask, what does the tattoo say on his arm?
It's just a star. It's the Webrepublic star. But
okay.
He promised to do that, but he never did. So some people from the team got together, and when he got back from a trip to South Africa, they kind of like kidnapped him and brought this tattoo artist into the office, and there was a lot of screaming involved, and he now has a we call it the SpongeBob star tattoo. And yes,
that's the way it goes if you take the wrong bet. Exactly.
Yes, but he did it. I mean, that's the cool thing, right? So he did it, and he's now a bit more careful in promising things.
Yep, I understand. And also you mentioned the financial crisis that hit in 2009, where probably some of the companies that you potentially worked for significantly must have reduced their budgets due to the effects of the financial crisis on their balance sheets. So I just wonder, when looking back about the timing, maybe the timing is never exactly right, but launching your own company in 2009, that could be seen like, are you completely nuts? This is like in a complete recession. You will never make it. So why was the timing still right despite the financial crisis to start in 2009?
Mm-hmm. I think it was actually a factor that played into our cards, because as you said, companies were trying to save money, and it was a unique setting because performance marketing was new. There was the promise to actually measure what you get, and you could start very low. So you could easily scrap a 200,000 Swiss francs TV campaign and try a 20,000 Swiss francs performance campaign, and you would see some results. And I think that combined with this, like, we had time on our hands, right? So I think the early clients got the most perfect service there was, and I think the setting was really interesting, and I think for us really because clients got more cost efficient, also wanted to try out new things, and then actually it worked. I think that was a very magical formula for us. So I think without maybe the financial crisis, maybe the foundation would have been different.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. You also mentioned the pure focus on the customer and not letting the customer down is something that you did differently compared to other agencies. We all know that, the agency business is really tough. So usually you sell your hours, you need to fight for projects and don't automatically generate additional recurring revenue as you would with a software startup, for example. So there's also something that you did differently there. So I just wonder, how did you actually solve this challenge and release that constant pressure from your company and your team?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, coming back to just like the thesis, we knew that working with a fixed percentage of media wouldn't work, because also it incentivized you to spend more. So every year you go back to the client and say, hey, this is cool, but we should do a little bit more because then you earn more, etc., etc. And what we did is, again, quite simple. We just usually worked with retainer fees. So had like a certain amount of hours and just sold those retainer fees. And that allowed us to really have like very stable monthly revenues. Also because performance marketing is not something that you do in waves. So it's not like the Zalando performance campaign for Q1, and then you have like another one in Q3 and another one for Christmas. It's something that's always on, right? You don't just like switch it on and off, at least not for Google. So those campaigns just run. And as long as there's demand from the clients, you want to be there. So you want to show your ads, you want to make sure people find your website and spend their money. So that's how it works. And basically, again, quite different from other agency areas where you actually do those campaigns. So we now have more of them also, where you have like strategic planning, where you have like more like branding campaigns also that you manage. And those come in waves. We also try to have there like the always on approach. But basically what allowed us also to grow as a company was to have these stable campaigns. So once a client got onboarded, we actually knew how much man or woman power we needed to keep this going.
Nice. I like that innovation in the pure business model that you did there. I think that's a really important part of setting up the right basics basically for your company. Another challenge that you also faced was hiring the right people. You said you never wanted to grow bigger than 30 people. Now you are at 200. So that's where tattoos happen in between. And I just wonder, something that you mentioned to me in the prep call was that when you were actually looking for talent to hire people, there was no real education or job for this because it was also pretty early, right? So how do you manage that? Because that's a huge challenge to solve if you don't know how to call or how to find those people.
Mm-hmm. It's also, I think, one of the things that we didn't change over time. So many of the principles that I think are core to the Webrepublic DNA, we did this from day one. So some of like the meeting systems we have, some of the beliefs that we follow, they were there since day one when we started out. And hiring also, because there were no performance marketing universities, there was no course that you could take. So the only thing is really like either self-taught people, but sometimes they were really weird people. So that was like kind of like something that sometimes would work out, sometimes not. And what was easier, and I think the path that we opted for was hiring talent over experience, and that basically means from the very early days, every time when we looked at candidates, we were really like, it was important for us not to just to like seek out people who did this already, but actually write job descriptions for people who are generally interested in online marketing. That was it. And then when somebody like applied, we tried to like find out, is it like an SEO type of person? Is it a Google Ads type of person, etc. But because nobody's looking for an SEO internship, at least not in 2009 or 2012. But people might have an interest in digital marketing. So they might have some interest in statistics. They might be active with their own blog, etc., something like that. But they have no clue about like how to run like a marketing campaign digitally, because it was just something that you wouldn't do. And what we did then was really, it's a very simple 2x2 matrix. So one is like your character, what we call the oomph, and it's still one of the big things that we care about in people. Are you driven? Or do you have like the power to do things? So what's your passion? So that's like one of the big things. And if you don't have the oomph, you can't train this, right? So this is something that you either have it or you don't. And expertise or skills you can train. So we'd rather have somebody who's really, really like ambitious or really has like the drive to do things and teach them, instead of finding somebody who maybe did this for 10 years but is really lame, not a team player, not fun to hang out with. So that's like how we like try to find the right people and really then give them a lot of responsibility, train them, work really close. And I think one of the good examples is when we build up the SEO team. We started out with somebody, and he's Christian. He has now his own agency in the advertising space, and I still very much appreciate him as a person. I think he was a very, very cool hire back in the days, and he actually came from the hospitality schools. So somebody who knows how to handle client demands and translate them into actions. And he then got the opportunity to really also learn about the SEO business. And I think it's very important that you know what's the key ingredient to success. And in terms of SEO, the key ingredient is, will the client also adapt the things that you recommend? Because you can, as an agency, you can do many, many things, but at the end, somebody needs to implement something on the website and decide about priorities. So knowing how to talk with clients, how to like persuade clients, that was much more important than to actually know what is a canonical tag, what's H1, what does H2 do, etc., etc. So that was, I think, very important for us.
Absolutely. I just want to go back to the statement that you mentioned before, like hiring for talent over experience. So experience, that's pretty simple to measure, right? You can look at somebody's CV, what education, what work experience do they bring to the table. For the talent part, you just mentioned the oomph, which is important to you and on that matrix. But is there anything else about how you can make talent measurable? Anything that you test people for when you have the first interview with them or the first impression? How do you assess whether someone is talented or not?
Yeah. Well, you can't get around assessments. So what we do with like people, when they are like invited for an interview, they get some kind of like assessment question or task. So they should like present a test campaign, something like that. And it does basically two things, because they need to invest upfront time you already know who is like willing to do that, or if they are just like, no, that's too much. I can't do this. I don't have the time. So you already filter out people who are really lazy or maybe a bit complicated. And the second part is you actually see how they would perform. And again, perfection is not the goal. It's really about what's their approach, how do they process new information, what's their angle. And it's also very valuable for people who are applying for a job that they don't know what it is. And many people also said, hey, I was like checking out the learning center, the links that you sent me, and I realized this is not the job that I wanted. And that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to drop out of the process while you're actually interviewing with the company. It's much better than if we filter out other people and start with this person, and then after 3 months, he finds out that this is not, it's like too technical, it's too much statistics, etc., etc. So I think it has many benefits to actually let people test drive their daily job before they start. And maybe one like addendum to this thing like hiring personality over experience. I think what's changed now in the past 2 years is that we absolutely hire also for experience, because like the market has changed. We will still hire for personality. So that's still, I think, one of the key ingredients to success, but depending on the role, because there's much more experience available right now. So people have worked in different agencies, have worked on the client side, did research, did studies, etc. And also we as a company have different needs. So yes, so we're really lucky to hire like the new head of HR. It's not the first time that she does that, and I think it's really cool for us that we have now somebody like her to actually do this. And we also like found out that hiring team leaders from the outside is good. Sometimes it's good to hire them from within the team, but we somehow shied away from doing that because we always were afraid to piss off people from the team. But what we found out is that sometimes it's really appreciated by the team to also have somebody as a manager who brings in a new perspective, somebody they can learn from. And for us, this really I think that was a big change for us, to really allow ourselves to also hire people from externally.
Before we continue with the show, we would like to introduce you to our new partner, Nuco. Nuco helps founders navigate the paperwork that starting a company involves. From the first consultation all the way to the commercial register, Nuco has helped more than 900 entrepreneurs start their company, and they do so at highly competitive prices. To find out more, visit nuco.ch/Swisspreneur. Again, that's nuco.ch/Swisspreneur. And now, on with the show.
Really great tips and takeaways, I think, for all the listeners here. I would also like to talk about opponents and supporters that you met along the way of building up Webrepublic. Let's start with the opponents first. So since 2009, there was a real boom in the whole digital marketing area. So you probably also have way more competition that you face now in the market. Is there any main competitor or anything that moved there from the perspective about 11, 12 years ago?
Well, let's call them sparring partners.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, what has changed is now that the market landscape is much more complex than it was in 2009. In 2009, we were a very focused performance agency. So I think the only thing that we did was really performance marketing, Google ads. So really kind of like a one-trick pony for the first 2 years. And there were 3-4 other agencies specialized in that performance business. One of them being Lucas. I think you've interviewed him in late 2020. And his company, it was then called Your Position. He's now part of a larger network. And he was kind of the benchmark. So he was where we dreamed to be maybe in a very distant point in the future, and that was really helpful to also okay, this is how they go about and really benchmark yourself and kick yourselves in the ass if it didn't really work out and get the inspiration. I think so. Like a local competitor really helps you to keep the focus and know like who is better than you. And really, also, I mean, sometimes that really hurts because like you're losing in pitches, sometimes you win, but you like there's like this a very healthy competition. But also, I think what really helps, especially if you're like digital and in Switzerland, is don't just focus on Switzerland. Go out, really. I think also one of the big things that really helped us to take off was we would always go to like US conferences. And if you're there as a little Swiss agency and you're listening to what they did there, is like that was like the biggest kick in the ass that you like can eventually get, because it's really like everything that we do here is like beginners level. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but if you benchmark yourself against like the absolute industry leaders, that's even more motivating than just like local benchmarks. And because local benchmarks fight with local clients, and so there's like only so far you can get. And I think it always helps to like read international blogs, read international like industry news, and be present in international conferences. And I think that's something that really was quite important for us as a young company. As I said, things have changed over the 10, 12 years. And one of the things now is that the whole marketing space is more cluttered than ever. So there's no like, the boundaries between the different service levels and service descriptions are not that clear anymore. So you have like big networks, you have performance niches, you have display marketing, you have like overall consulting. So there's many different shades of marketing providers right now. And that means also we don't have like one competitor anymore, but we have actually a set of like different competitors and sparring partners where we like benchmarks ourselves. And I think the last thing here from an entrepreneurial perspective is also don't focus too much on your competitors, because at the end it's about you. It's about what you bring to the table for your clients. And you can lose yourself by tracking what everybody does and where they are, et cetera, et cetera. So it's I think at the end it's about you, what you want to do, how you create value for your team, for your clients, and what that means for your business strategy. And I think that's, don't get lost in competitor analysis, because you need to do things, right? At the end of the day, you can read up on everything, but at the end of the day, it's about what you actually put into practice after you have done that research. And yeah, I think it's more about really doing the things and not just like reading it.
I love that. Execution is the key. I think one more time, a really good reminder here. And what you actually also did, if we then look, switch from opponents to supporters, you actually, sometimes your opponents can also become your supporters or your competitors, maybe. So that's probably what happened with Wirtz, where you with Webrepublic and Wirtz have informally joined forces. So I just wonder, why did you decide to take that step?
Yeah, has a lot to do with that that shakeup in the marketing industry overall, because generally I wouldn't say, and also I think Wirtz wouldn't say that we are a competitor, right? So from the outside, yes, we're two agencies competing for marketing Swiss francs, but basically we're really, when you look at the business of those two agencies, we're quite different, right? And we don't have that much of an overlap maybe as other agencies. So Wirtz is really positioned in the branding and communications field. They have their own brand relations team, the communication and like the strategy part of them is really like, that's a benchmark, I think, for the Swiss market. And also they're around since many years and really have proven to be one of the leading brands in the Swiss communication market. They're not that big and they're not that experienced in the digital field, where we are not that experienced in like this creative platforms, etc., communication strategies field. So it was kind of like we really like it matched from a service level perspective, and we weren't really competitors. But what has changed, of course, is that many agencies around us have like been like acquired or like merged or like really moved in together. So there was this kind of like more integrated perspective towards marketing services and service provisioning. And on the other hand, I think it's also, you need to combine it, because if you really want to have like an impact, we're now in a post-digital age, right? It's not anymore about, oh, I have some digital clients and then I have some non-digital customers. No one buying a sofa in a furniture store will not have been on the website. Maybe 1%, but there's no such thing as a not digitally influenced purchase journey. But also, you can only get so far with just like the pure digital disciplines. So we need to understand like how to entertain, how to like create value for the customers. We need to like understand how do we build brands. And yes, you can do it only with digital channels, but it's much smarter to do it in an integrated fashion. So this partnership, Bob, best of both, where like Wirtz and Webrepublic join forces in a very unique way, has a lot to do with acknowledging each other as driving forces in one part of the market we're in, and also opening up to each other. So it has a lot to do with respect, with this like, you know something that we don't. And in the past, we made a lot of jokes about creative agencies, and I think also creative agencies make a lot of jokes about the data-driven companies and how they lack soul and are like technocrats. And the cool thing right now is, because we bring those teams together, is it allows us to really like just work together. It's not, we don't need to fight off against each other anymore. We can actually work together and also celebrate our unique perspective and what we bring to the table. And for me personally, it's one of the coolest things to do right now, to really like open up to that and really like understand that there's much more than you actually understand about your own job.
Nice. That's for sure a great setup. At the same time, both companies are still legally independent. So I wonder, why didn't you decide to like formally merge the companies, or that one company acquires the other one?
We'll try to do something again unique, because if everybody's just like merging and acquiring and just like something doesn't feel right. So I think we were on the quest to like do something, but do it differently. And that has always been like part of our DNA, and I think also in Wirtz's DNA. And the goal here really is, because both agencies again are well positioned. So Wirtz is well positioned, we are well positioned, and we believe that the things we do work well because of the teams and the culture behind those teams that we have. And if we now would like acquire Wirtz, or if Wirtz would be to acquire Webrepublic, it means that one of the cultures would need to like adapt to the other ones. And I think because we are very nicely positioned in our markets, due to the cultures of those companies, the unique cultures, I think that's a very dangerous path to do, especially if you're not like forced to actually do that, because both agencies are actually doing really well at the moment, and I think it's very interesting time for us to do that. But still, there's a need for change, right? And I think now this setup where we say we work together in an open setup. I mean, there's some exclusivity attached to that. We are not dating with other creative agencies right now, but it just means we can do this as a team. And the way I put it usually is, when you do things like that, you can either spend a lot of time with lawyers and consultants and map out many cool slides regarding the USP and the value creation, etc., and then present it to the team, and then you merge. And I think the idea here is really to do this together with the team, like really like lay out a very open plan and then give the people the opportunity to actually be part of that. So they don't need to do it. I mean, everybody needs to do it a little bit. But the idea really is that we like find out what's working now together with the teams. And not everything works perfectly fine, but also I think there's a very cool momentum that we've been generating. So the spirit between the two teams now, 5 months in, is amazing. And it's really cool to see like what's possible when you do this openly, transparently with your team. And it's not just about, hey guys, we just sold half of our company and here's your new owner. See ya. That's like another story. And for us, and also like Wirtz is independently managed, owner managed, and also as Webrepublic. I think that's a unique setup, and it's also something where we can like use that power to actually build something that is again unique in Switzerland and is now providing like the largest set of communication services to the market.
Today's episode was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. They have something for everyone. From business to web development to art and productivity, Skillshare can help you take the next step in your learning journey. Personally, we've been loving Thomas Frank's Productivity Masterclass. Explore your creativity at skillshare.com/Swisspreneur. The first 1,000 people to use our link will get a free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership. Again, that's skillshare.com/Swisspreneur. Enjoy the show.
I just have a follow-up question on the market on that regard, because you mentioned Lukas Stuber before, who joined a larger network. One could even argue that although you didn't merge, but unofficially joined forces to work together, that there is sort of a certain trend to a tendency to these mega agencies. So do you think that in Switzerland, the landscape will be unbeatable mega companies where everybody will merge and there will be a lot of M&A activities? Or do you think that market disruption will always find a way and also leave room for smaller agencies?
I think it's tough to be in the middle. I think it's really tough if you're like 50, 80 people agency in the middle. That's going to be really tough. But on one hand, you see this need for integrated services because again, digital is so prominent and it's now like more and more like also taking like the lead seat. So most of the budgets are like allocated to like digital topics. That means clients can usually they cannot afford to work with 5, 6 different specialized agencies, and they need this somebody who really breaks down the complexity of the market. And I think that really also means that there's a lot of space for integrated services. Also because it's not just many different services, but also all these services require in-depth knowledge and experience. And if there's just 2 or 3 people doing performance marketing in your agency, that means you're not really good at this, because this person would need to be a specialist in TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google Ads, Bing Ads, you name it, Google Analytics, programmatic landscapes, Adobe. So all of these things. So in our case, we have dedicated teams with multiple people just for one single specialized service that we work with. And if you don't have this, it's getting really difficult to stay on top of that of that game. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of room for mid-sized clients, because they will not need Bob, right, for their KMU interest, and I think they also will need really cutting edge digital marketing experience. So I think there's a lot of room for smaller specialized local agencies, and then champions within smaller segments of the market. So if you're the best video agency, if you're the best influencer marketing agency, I think that's a very nice spot to be in. But there will be less smallisher agencies who will compete in that space. And yes, but then I mean then there's the international market again, completely different story there. Also competing with like the big consultancies who are like increasingly present, but coming from a completely different angle. And again, here, I mean, the question is then, in which market do you want to compete? So what is your market? And yes, so not every client will be your ideal target client, and you need to find out like where can you actually create value, and also is that value appreciated, and then work like towards that set of clients.
Yeah, think about your playing field, basically, where you want to get active. So now we're talking about supporters, and when we talk about supporters, there's usually also a big support that you don't really notice in the spotlight from the outside, but that is not of less importance. I'm talking about your family here. So your dad also worked in advertising, so I'm sure that he also supported you in many ways along the journey. But then, of course, you also have a family yourself. Your spouse is also a very important part in that regard. So in what way does your family, from your dad to your spouse, actually support you along the journey of building such a company as Webrepublic?
Well, from the very first day, right? I mean, you like have somebody when you like actually talk about like opportunities that you have. If you have also like an interested person who like is there as a sparring partner again. So like you would like discuss opportunities. You would discuss maybe like an angle that you would take with like somebody from the team, or like a tough discussion that you would have with a client. And I think the cool thing, at least in my case, it's really that it's a very honest support. So it's not just like complete blind fandom. Absolutely not. But this way I can really also count on that perspective. And I think one of the things really like the content of that like support. And the other thing is, I mean, it takes a lot of time to do that. And especially now, since we have 2 kids also, that basically means there's not that much time left in the day. And for me also, that is one of the things, like you need to do this as a family. And it's also very nice to just like switch off the entrepreneur person once in a while and just like be there with the family and have this like other aspect in your life where you see like, yeah, well, you see more on a personal level what's actually happening, because the business, I mean, at the end, I love what I do, but it's also sometimes a bit, it's the same. Like there's another client, there's another exciting project, there's another deadline that I'm nearly missing. There's the next year, there's the next budget. And I think it's very healthy not to completely get overwhelmed by that, and have somebody on your side that reminds you from time to time that there's like an actual life, that there are other people and there's other things than just like digital marketing. So I think that's really healthy to like be in this together, but also supporting those decisions that you take. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it has an impact on her as well, right? So that job has a lot of impact on the whole family. Very good impact, but also, I mean, a lot of stress and like times that I'm not available.
Right. But actually talking about time, that is a scarce resource, basically, probably the most important resource we all have. You're also very active outside of Webrepublic as a board member, but also as a lecturer at several universities. And I just wonder, on everything that you have on your agenda, why are you also doing these things? Because they also consume an extra amount of your time.
Yes, but I think, again, we're not alone in this ecosystem, right? So when we set out on this journey, I think it was really interesting to also like talk with people within the industry, get inspired by other people. And I always looked up to people who are like able to break down complexities and make something accessible. And for me, it's kind of like something that I also always aspire to, so that you can like explain things that you actually do and help people to like do that. And and it actually also forces you to stay up to date. So if you're like lecturing digital marketing, one thing that is for granted is you cannot take last year's slide. just doesn't work because the interface looks different. There's new platforms emerging, and everything is like changing so fast. You really need to like be on top of your game. And for me, it kind of like forces me to have an ear on the market and understand how our client needs shifting, and what's keeping everybody on their toes. And for me, this is really something where I can create value and have like another kind of like, because I'm much more, I'm not involved in all client mandates anymore at Webrepublic, but I still want to know what's happening right on the general side. And this outside view, I think this, especially if you think about like company strategy, I think it's very important that you have a source of outside inspiration, and that you force yourself to be out there. I think that's very important. And by the way, also like think about supporters that you mentioned before. Clients are amazing supporters. So I still have some of the clients that are with us since like day one, became friends, and you still like have an exchange with them. And I think really this like going beyond the business transaction, really like caring for each other, supporting each other. I think that's very important. And I think that also, I think for me, it really differentiates that from just another job, that you really do something. And I mean, and that's what I think is also really cool with those like advisory boards, that you discuss ideas together with other people. And sometimes one idea would stuck and really transform into something much, much bigger. And you can participate by that. And I think that's where you can like create value, but you don't need to do everything on your own, but actually really inspire people to do something and get another perspective on something.
Nice. I really like that message of highlighting the importance of being part of the ecosystem to then get outside input to be a better leader or founder for your own company. I think that's a very strong message to take home here. So if we look back to 2020, despite the COVID pandemic, it was a successful year for Webrepublic. You already mentioned you now employ more than 200 people. You have also been nominated for the Advertiser of the Year award. So we just wonder what's next for the digital magician, as you have also been called by other people.
It might surprise you. It's just like doing the things that we've started in 2020. I think that's the big plan. As you mentioned, we're now partnering up with Wirtz. This is not something you do overnight. So we really plan to work really, really hard on that. We actually like the Wirtz partnership, but also our addition of the service into like the classical media. That's also something we did last year. So we had two major initiatives, major strategic initiatives that we did during this pandemic year, and they've just only started. So we really need to like work on them, make sure that everybody in the team understands it, that the market understands it, and that really motivates me, because I think we've started some really, really cool vectors for the future of the company. And also like the long-term vision of us is that we are a benchmark of how to do business in the advertising industry. We're well on that. We're well underway on that journey, but we're not there. So I think some kind of like a German way to say that is like Kraft in der Ruhe. So we don't need a new magic trick every year. 2021 will be about really delivering on the promises that we put out there last year, and make sure that we implement them the right way.
I love your focus on the execution. I think that's so important that many people forget. In that regard, you even mentioned a German quote to me on the prep call. I tried to translate it to English, but it really stuck with me when you said it, that we are often knowledge giants, but execution dwarfs. And for me, this is so interesting and also really strong message in there. Focus on the execution. You don't always need the shiny new thing or the big new plan. Make sure that if you have a home run in place, that you actually bring it home and don't start a new home run in between and don't finish it.
Yep, absolutely. Because again, you can like, and by the way, that's attributed to David Bossart from the GDI. Die Wissensgiganten und Umsetzungszwerge. And there's so much truth in there, because again, you can like always run around and like inform yourself about what there is now. I think you should all be busy with like your Clubhouse strategy. But how about your email CRM activation? Is it ready? How about the page speed of your website? How about integrating your partnership landscape in a more like structured way? So really making sure that what has major impact on your company, that this works. Like knowledge management within your own company, very important topic. Managing team spirit, very important topic. So not just like trying to like be busy all the time, but really understanding also like what has an impact. And I think, I mean, we're only 12 years old, right? So I can only speak for my own perspective and experience, but it takes more time to get from idea to implementation. And that might be frustrating for you as a founder when in the first days you could just like have an idea, run around in the office, and a week later it's all done and implemented, kind of. That's also sometimes very frustrating to actually see that you need this like different rounds, you need to listen to people, you need to like adjust your idea. But once it kicks in and once you get to this implementation phase, it's really cool to see 200 people running in the same direction, or at least like 180, maybe, to be really realistic. And there's a certain magic behind that, to understand like you can do maybe less things, but they will have more impact.
I think there's no better way to end the formal question part of that interview. We do have 2 parts left for you. And the first one is about personal resources and gadgets that you can recommend. So is there anything out there that you can recommend to our listeners that you yourself use on a regular basis, or that you liked reading or listening or watching to?
I think one little thing, I'm a big fan of Todoist, this to-do app. And also I'm a big fan of not changing your to-do task management tool all too often. So don't keep busy. Don't like distract yourself with being more efficient, but I think really finding your own tool, like how do you keep track of all the different macro, micro, etc. tasks. For me, that there's no better way than Todoist, but again, it's just like one of the simple hacks. So everything that I think out about just like lands on this list, then I can like go through it.
Awesome.
Also, schedule emails. Maybe that's another magic trick. Don't answer right away. Sometimes it's really cool to just like let that email send it one day later. Just like take out some of the stress to really like reflect on things and yeah. Don't fuel the always on email inbox monsters.
Good point. And for the very last part, we prepared some rapid fire questions for you. Either I give you a selection or a short question that you can answer in 1 to 2 sentences. Are you ready?
Yes, shoot.
So the first one, investor money or bootstrapping?
Bootstrapping.
That's a clear choice
Super
with your
easy.
setup.
Yeah.
What email client do you use?
We run the Google Cloud.
Perfect. And where do you go to think?
Is that a home office corona situation question or not?
Maybe you can say both, depending on your setup.
Because honest answer, in normal times, I try to really find like time and space to work remotely once or twice a week, so nobody can like disturb me, to really think about like the long-term things. But it's also very important to not be the bottleneck for your team. So if there's any question, just like get the answer out there and rather be quick than too lazy.
Yep, a delicate balance to strike for.
Yep.
How many hours do you usually work per day?
I don't know. I used to work more, I think, in the very early days of Webrepublic. Now try to like, I don't know, 9 to 10. Really depends. But to be also, again, really honest, I love my family. And I think it's very important that I'm not the only one doing the things, so that we have like a healthy balance in the company, and try to like also involve other people in the things that I do. It really used to be more, but I think now it's maybe 9 to 10.
So that's a good trend, I would say. It's decreasing.
Yep, a lot of work.
And how much sleep do you get on average?
Oh, that doesn't depend on the company. That basically depends on the family situation again. I'd say 6 to 7 hours.
Perfect. And if you have to make a choice...
No, you need to ask about the breaks. So it's not just about the amount of hours. It's like how fragmented are those 6 hours?
Yeah, that has an immense impact on the quality of rest and sleep. That's right.
Sorry.
So if you had to choose between Facebook or Google Ads, what would you go for?
I would go for Google Ads. Not just because I worked at Google previously, but the data layers and privacy, like the privacy behind that is much more stable. So I love Facebook for what they've created. Not everything about Facebook, but if you're like a medium-sized company, very powerful. But for the rapid fire question, much more stable, much more reliable. I would opt for the Google Ads. But basically, I mean, it's about the goal of your campaign. So
true. Yep. Would you say that Facebook is more for branding or traffic and Google more for really converting?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Facebook is like a newspaper with very like personal news. So it's push, and Google is the classic pull channel.
Yep. And the last one for you today, Switzerland or the United States?
Well, that's very easy now. I love Switzerland. It's a very nice company, very nice country. But again, I think for businesses, it's always interesting to like keep an eye on the United States, whatever shape they're in. But for now, really, I think super happy to be here.
Awesome. Tobias, thank you so much for taking the time and also for walking us through the impressive journey of Webrepublic. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you and the whole team, the more than 200 people now, all the best and lots of success for the future. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your questions. It was a really interesting session with you.
Now that you've finished listening to the episode, why not top it off with a quick rating on Apple Podcasts? It's one of the best things you can do to help us reach more entrepreneurs just like you.